The Zora Neale Hurston Trust presents the It's All About Zora series. We'll be discussing all things Zora with artists, academics, and fans of Zora Neale Hurston on the It's All About Zora series. Plus, we will uncover her influences on our guests' lives and work. So let's get the conversation started. Thank you so much for joining me today, Kristy.
So exciting.
Me too. So I have to tell you, Jump at the Sun is one of the most fascinating documentaries I've ever seen. And we're going to talk lots about that. But before we do, I want to ask you, what was the first time that you encountered Zora?
You know, I'm a filmmaker and a Florida filmmaker. So I was looking for a project, and I had been doing a lot of environmental and some history and culture. A friend of mine at the Florida Humanities Council said, "Hey, you should do a film on Zora Neale Hurston." And that was 1989, 88, and they would not fund me. But I read Bob Hemingway's book. It was just such a great book, but I had all these questions. You know, I didn't quite understand why Zora was ostracized. I mean, I'm no, Black history scholar, and I hadn't lived the life of a Black person. So it was not really part of what I grew up with. After reading his biography, I realized that this woman had taken footage and photos and written the oral history of an entire, cultural race. And at the time, these were people that weren't really written about. And so I thought, oh, wow, this would make a great documentary. And then I started reading everything I could so that I could understand Zora a little bit more through her voice. So there you go.
A lot of people typically, they find Zora's work first, but you found Zora through Robert Hemingway's biography, which is the first biography of Zora. So I wonder, now that you kind of have that connection with Zora, thought to be the first Black woman filmmaker, what does her work mean to you personally?
It means a lot. As a documentary filmmaker, you're always trying to find the obscure, the hidden, the new story. You're trying to bring to light maybe what other people don't see, or what other people don't understand, or what other people are ignoring as a social justice filmmaker. So for Zora to be capturing her people and embracing them in the way she obviously was doing in her films, that to me, spoke volumes. It just helped so much, because as a filmmaker, that's what we're looking for. Her footage says so much to a filmmaker, because we love film footage. And it's not to say that there wasn't a certain amount of film footage already shot, but there wasn't a lot in Florida. Florida in the 20s was just a little tiny place that not very many people went to. And thank God Zora did. At a time when nobody else was going to Florida, as a single woman in a car. How many single Black women in the 1920s have a car? She's got her pearl-handled pistol under her seat. And this is a very dangerous thing to do, extremely dangerous. This was a time in the South when there was a lot of lynching. The camera that she probably used, I'm going to grab it. Can I grab it? It's right here. This is probably the camera that Zora used, but maybe it wouldn't have had this lens. Maybe it only have one lens. And it has a crank. And you crank it up, and then it's just a wonderful thing that we're so lucky we have it.
I appreciate that perspective, because we haven't had any filmmakers on the series yet. Now, talking about the actual film, Jump at the Sun, you touched on it a little bit. Your friend from the Florida Humanities said, you should make a film on that. Was that the sole catalyst, or was there some other stuff you'd like to share with us?
Well, I wanted to get more into cultural filmmaking. I was doing a lot of environmental filmmaking. I did films on sea turtles and manatees and bodies of water. I was looking for something that I thought was worthy of a film. And I didn't understand, why don't more people know about this woman? The fact that the Florida Humanities Council wouldn't fund my film, I had funding from 10 humanities councils and not Florida, but the Florida Division of Cultural Affairs did. It's kind of hard to get funding for films. I was glad I got it.
I don't know if you could be any more glad than me. So right up there with
Oh, you're so sweet.
right up there with Valerie Boyd's Wrapped in Rainbows and Carla Kaplan's A Life in Letters, to see that footage and that film and even the context of all of those things on a visual medium and done so artfully. I have to just say thank you for that.
That is so nice. I wondered how I could bring Zora Neale Hurston to life in the film. She was just such a spunky character, and I didn't want it to be boring. When I first heard about this radio interview with Mary Margaret McBride, which is really interesting to listen to, and there was another one that sadly nobody knows where that is, but I thought, I hated to do a reenactment, but at the time, the only footage that existed was the Mason footage. Nobody knew about the footage that Margaret Mead had funded in South Carolina. And that was so exciting because I actually worked with the Library of Congress because I saw these letters about film footage and I said, hey, there's got to be some film footage there. And what had happened is Margaret Mead wanted to have an anthropology museum at the Museum of Natural History. And so she had an office there, I think. And so she had a box of things that people had given her. She was never able to create this museum, but she gave that box of items to the Library of Congress. Arlene Balkansky at the Library of Congress started looking, and they had to look. It's not like they look right at the building right there. They have a whole archive somewhere else. And they started looking in this box, and the film can had the same date as the letters. We were able to figure out that that had to be the film footage. And the building still exists in Beaufort, South Carolina, where this was filmed. I didn't even know that until maybe about 5 years ago. I went with Lois Gaston, Dr. Gaston, and we went to look at this house that supposedly Zora lived in that was falling apart. And we're walking down the street, and oh my gosh, there's the building. And I kind of wanted to spread the word because I don't think a lot of people know.
So do you feel like you have some more Zora projects left in you, or are you like Jump at the Sun gets other people excited and now they can continue the work?
These projects take a long time. I mean, mine, of course, took 18 years, which is probably way too long for anything. My son was 18 by the time my film was shown. I mean, I spent a long time on the film, and there's other things I want to do about Florida, but there's certainly more. The more you look, the more you find. And every time, somebody finds some old ship, barracoon, short story, or whatever, there's a whole interest in Zora. And I think that's, to me, is the success of the film. There were lots of problems. I would talk to people. They didn't know who Zora was. They didn't know why they would fund this film about some anthropologist, Black anthropologist, which is really kind of what happened when Zora died. There was this whole thing of she wasn't important. Obviously, it's taken a long time, but everybody realizes now that she was one of the most important writers in the Black South. And that's what I wanted to do, is take her out of the Harlem Renaissance, because everybody that I talked to, they said, oh, Zora Neale Hurston, yes, she's a Harlem Renaissance writer. And I kept saying, no, she's a Southern writer.
Thank you for that, showing the South, really through her eyes and experience adds so much dynamic to her legacy. So I do have to ask, because 18 years is a long time. What do you think made you stick with it, for those 18 years to get to the finish line?
It takes a lot of money to make a film that is deserving of such a wonderful person. I could have like done a quick little film and had some little distribution or whatever, but I knew this was should be a big film. I would be working and all of a sudden I'd get a grant, and these little things along the way encouraged me, as soon as I was thinking, oh, geez, what am I going to do? That something would happen. I think I'm a much more spiritual person now because of this film, because the things that would happen, little incidences where I really felt like Zora was the boss. I didn't feel like I was in charge. I felt like Zora was in charge. She would tell me where to go and what to do. And that was kind of fun. One time I went to the Library of Congress, I happened to be in Washington, and I dropped by to look at this new film footage, see if it was there. They didn't know I was coming. And they looked at me like they'd seen a ghost or something, and they said, wow, did you know that Zora's brother, he had just dropped in as well, and he had gone to lunch and was coming back. And it was just so stunning. But like I said, I think I really became a more spiritual person. And plus, I was working with a lot of African Americans, and I realized how unspiritual my life was compared to the spirituality that African Americans seem to have, the sisterhood. At one point, I was thinking about how we, as a white woman in the 70s, we thought we were liberated, And then I thought, Black women have been busting their butts and working all their lives. And, so it was a whole different reality for me. It was a good one.
I can agree with you. Even when you decide you're not going to do it, if Zora wants you to, it kind of happens, right?
Right. That's right. Zora's in charge.
And I love that you say that, because we do have a woman as our subject who was spiritual 2 times over, the daughter of a pastor, but also an initiate of hoodoo. And so she had a lot of those spiritual elements. I think that helps her legacy persist. Now, I do have to ask you, because you had to have a lot of experiences working on the film. Do you have a favorite scene or moment in the film?
I do. My favorite part of the film, and you'll probably laugh at this because it's probably not what you're thinking, is when Lee Baker discusses the importance of folk stories. To me, that was the essence of the film. It's one thing to say somebody went out and collected folk tales, but it's another thing to understand that they collected them at a time when nobody cared. I felt like he really captured so much for me. I really appreciated his contributions, but everybody was just so fabulous in the film.
What do you think that your film contributes not only to Zora's legacy, but the people who are doing the work of preserving Zora's legacy now?
I think being able to reach a wide audience, it gave a lot of credence to the importance of Zora. And, that's something that doesn't happen really easily with a book, unless it's, really, well, their eyes were watching God. I hope they go away with an understanding of Zora's perseverance in spite of great adversity. And not only that, she was doing something that others weren't doing. And I think you have to be an artist in this world. You have to put blinders on and see your point of view, your perspective, and what you can do to make something unique. Sometimes people just, get wrapped up in the things that they need to do or that they've been taught to do. But it's important to have an edge, and I think Zora did that. I think my film really captured Zora in a special way, and the whole history of, uh, you know, Black filmmaking and Black culture. And there's been some great films, but I really like mine.
And I think that's one of the things that's important if Zora's legacy is going to persist, right? We kind of pass the torch and we know our work is a contribution, and hopefully other people see it and say like, oh, I want to do this, or I want to know Zora. So thank you for that, because I am definitely one of those people. When I saw it on film, I had been to Florida one previous time, but I said, okay, now I have to go see Zora's Florida.
Well, you'll have to come back.
Yeah, I absolutely love Florida, specifically because of the richness that Zora shows. And I think it was really important to have your film added into the collection of her legacy, because seeing it on film is just something different. Is there something that you wish people knew about Zora that you don't think a lot of people do know?
Well, one of the things that I wish more people maybe knew is that when Zora was married to Herbert Sheen, he got another woman pregnant, and that's why they divorced. And I think that it kind of gives a different understanding to that period of time when Zora is in Chicago and Herbert's in Chicago, and she doesn't want to go through with her scholarly work. She wants to leave and go back to Florida. It's very important to understand somebody in the period of time that they are in. So I think Zora had a lot of things going on in her life that may have influenced her. Honestly, I really don't believe there was this man that she supposedly had this great love affair with, but that's okay. Somebody said yes, but there's no proof of it. That's what I always look for, is solid proof.
That does add great context, because I believe there's an essay in You Don't Know Us Negroes where she is essentially lamenting over being a careerist as opposed to, a housewife. We see her achievements in the things that she did do, but we don't ever fully know the full context of anyone's life. So you just gave me a little tidbit. We'll have to have Kristy back on so she can give us all the secrets.
Well, yeah, Dolores Sheen, Herbert Sheen's daughters, was still alive. Honestly, I haven't kept up with a lot of people, but she gave me a lot of photos too. Photo of Herbert Sheen and Zora.
I think that's one of the special things about Zora's legacy, because she gave so much of herself, whether she meant to or not. The letters, the people that she knew, it keeps her alive in a certain way where her life is as interesting as the book she wrote. In my opinion, because there's always something new to learn about her, understand in a different way. Just like you said with Tiffany Patterson's book, it gave me so much context about the world as it existed when Zora was doing what she did. And so, yes, Kristy, I mean, this film, to add this to the great Florida artists, what does that mean to you?
This, is probably what did somebody call it once? My tour de force. But there are some films I still want to do. I am 71. I deserve to retire, okay? But I feel like I really did help to get Zora out there, and that was kind of what my goal was, and to place her in Florida. That was a real goal too. So I feel privileged to have done that, to have experienced everything I experienced with Zora by my side. That Zora girl, she's pretty funny. People still associate me with Zora, it's kind of fun. I'm so happy that there have been these other people who've continued, to look into Zora and to explore what Zora means to them. Because obviously, I'm this white woman, I have a certain point of view, but Zora's point of view was decidedly different from almost everybody's point of view. She was so unique. She really, followed her star. So it's really sad that, all this happens after she's deceased. And it's sad, really, that it took me so long to do the film, to convince people that this film was worth doing.
I would like to thank you. Hopefully, this won't be our last conversation because you are a treasure trove of Zora information, and I can't wait to get into more behind the scenes. But thank you so much for joining me today.
It's been my pleasure, and good luck with this. And we need to talk about where we're going to go from here.
Oh, it sounds good.